this is Crystal from the Dog Psychology and Training Center. I am here to go over your go home information and to give you a little bit of an abbreviated summary of what we'll be going over. Of course, read your handouts, preferably with this video, so you can follow along and understand what we're going through, and it'll just make more sense to you. By the way, if you see me swatting, I'm outside, so it is a beautiful day and the mosquitoes are loving it just as much as I am. So I'll be swatting at the mosquitoes on and off throughout the video. And this is my cat Orion here. He's going to be my sidekick in going through our go home orientation. So the first packet I like to go over with you is e-collar training and how we use your e-collar and some of the tips and things to consider when using it, so that your dog will have you will have an awesome experience with it. So fitting the remote collar, you want it to be snug. I talked about that in the how to e-collar video, but you want it to be on either side of the neck, so here or here, and every 2 to 3 hours I want you to rotate it from side to side, and that's just so your dog doesn't get what's called hot spots. It's kind of like a watch. If your watch is too tight and it gets some moisture in there, or even if it doesn't, it starts to kind of rub you a little bit and you might get raw or irritated. It's the same thing with the e-collar because it is so snug, so just make sure you rotate it from side to side to prevent any of those collar sores or hot spots. If your dog has been swimming, it is completely waterproof and safe to use, but again, because of those collar spots or hot spots, collar sores or hot spots, you want to remove the collar until both your dog and the collar are both dry, and then you can put it back on and use it again. Stim levels, the way we use our e-collar, we don't have a constant number that we use at all times. We have what we call a baseline level, and this is what your dog uses throughout most of its training as a baseline. But obviously motivation levels change, distractions and circumstances change, so your number is going to change a lot too, and your baseline level is just what you're going to fall back to. So let's say your dog has been working with us at a 4 to a 6. That's pretty low and that's pretty common. However, when we go outside, there's a bird that just flew by, my cat's always in their face, my kids are playing, so there's lots of distractions, squirrels, we actually have some groundhogs, we have a whole bunch of stuff. So as we're outside, those distraction levels are going to fluctuate. And so even though your dog's working level might be a 4 to a 6, outside we might actually be having our baseline be about a 20 outside. So when we're outside, as the distractions fluctuate, we're going to fall back to a 20. So let's say your dog's average working on a 20 outside, that's great, and then a cat comes by. We might actually turn him up to a 26 or a 28 or a 36 or a 42, whatever it takes to get your dog's attention. And when I say attention, he shouldn't jump or be startled or yip or anything like that. That is too much. When I say attention, when you say come and he's not coming, you're just going to dial up. Okay, you're at a baseline of 20, you're going to go to a 24, 28, 29, a 36, a 42. Oh, he starts to come. Great, that is what he needed, his right level of motivation to ignore whatever distractions were out there and present to come to you instead. So it's kind of like a pager system. We keep paging your dog until they come. And there's different types of paging. Sometimes we just do a momentary. Sometimes we do a constant and we hold for a second. Constant, or it's just constant and we just hold the button until he comes. And so that'll change based on your dog, sometimes daily, sometimes per minute, but you'll learn to read your dog and see what works best for him. We are all about the right training for the dog. Every dog, just like every person, is different and therefore learns differently. We want to make sure that our training adapts to your dog. So there's a lot of differences here. When you come to pick up your dog, we'll have more specifics on what actually is working for your dog while they're training with us. Sometimes, this is an important side note, sometimes you might see your dog's neck flinch when you're working your dog. If he doesn't jerk or yip or overreact about it, it's completely fine. It just means your collar happens to be on a muscle right there, and as we're working that stem, it's actually kind of stimulating that muscle. So I would definitely pursue or continue with whatever command you're giving your dog until he follows through, and then you can wiggle it on their neck or possibly rotate it to the other side, but it is not harming your dog in any way, so don't be concerned or worried about that. Let's see. So training tips, obviously when you first take your dog home, You're going to have to maintain his training, but that doesn't mean he's all done. He's only been with us a short time. So we had to basically have all of the behaviors he's done his whole life. You know, it could be 6 months, it could be 8 years. We had to undo those in 2 or 4 weeks, or, you know, 3 weeks, or however long your dog's here, 10 days, whatever. And so you have to maintain that, which means your dog might test you more. He might say, well, this is home. So at Crystal's house or whoever's house, I had to listen really well. But now that I'm home, well, I didn't have to listen as much here because I was never held accountable. Well, now you know how to hold your dog accountable. And so he's going to test those limits. That doesn't mean he's not trained. It just means you need to show him what's expected at your house. And so what we mean by that is the first month or so that your dog goes home, we're going to ask that you have a drag line. That could be his 6-foot leash, and then you can increase it to his 15-foot lead, and then you can increase it to his 30-foot lead. And this just gives you that extra stability and control that you need for your dog. So if he ever does get confused about boundaries or rules, or just decides to test you, because sometimes they do that. Sorry, I'm following a mosquito here. Of course, he lands in the most awkward position. Nope, I didn't get him. Okay, sorry, side note, got distracted. So, yes, leave the leash on him. So if he gets confused or distracted, or he is challenging you, you can pick up that lead while you're using your remote still and guide him or show him what you needed him to do. And so that's the purpose of the lead. Crating, anytime you can't 100% supervise your dog for that first month he's back home, he's in his crate. It is not cruel, it is not mean. He loves his crate, he loves his crate here. Sometimes, most of the time, when we have dogs in for dog sitting or boarding, their crate doors are open when they're out, and when they're not being worked or they're done playing with our dogs, they just go and chill and lay down in their crates anyways, because that's their bedroom, it's their personal space. So anytime you can't watch your dog like a hawk, into his crate. So that could be while you're at work, while you're cooking, while you're playing with the kids, or reading, you know, bedtime stories, taking a shower, whatever it is that you can't give your dog your undivided attention, he's in his crate. Be consistent. 2 words you can't use with a dog is sometimes and maybe. It has to be always or never. So if you tell your dog you can always be on the love seat, but never the couch or a chair, perfect. But you can't tell your dog you can sometimes be on the couch, except for, you know, when dad's here, or you know, when so-and-so's in a bad mood, because then we don't like it. That's confusing for your dog, and it's going to make more bad behaviors in the future. So be consistent, always or never. Be patient. Like I said earlier, he's learning these new commands. So you know, if he's being disobedient, most of the time it's not going to be because he's trying to be defiant. It's going to be because he's confused. You know, the rules weren't the same here when he left your house, and now they're changed. So he's going to be like, are you sure? Are you sure that's the rule? Are you sure that's what you want? And you're just going to have to show him, yes, this is what I want, and this is what's acceptable from now on. Practice, use it or lose it. You know, training is just like anything else. If you don't use it for a really long time, it's going to start to tarnish and get sloppy. So always use it, and it can be something as subtle as having your dog sit every time before you open the door for them to go outside. It could be having your dog sit to get attention. It could be having your dog go to his place as you have company come through your front door. So just make sure you're constantly using your commands and making sure your dog understands them so that they don't get sloppy and he doesn't get confused. So foundation training, when we're using the e-collar, like we said, your dog will have a baseline level. And that's exactly what we will find for you during training. But we want you to be proactive rather than reactive in your training. So what we mean by that is we deal with not only obedience training, but problem behaviors too. Jumping, nipping, counter surfing, trash digging, whatever it is. So the way we use problem behaviors and the way we train for problem behaviors and the way we train for obedience, they're a bit different. For obedience, we want to use the pager system, right? We keep paging your dog, earth to echo, until your dog's like, oh, you're talking to me? Yes, thank you. Come on over here because I called you. Or if you're using it because your dog's getting in the trash. We're not going to page your dog to get out of the trash. In fact, we're going to go up quite a bit. So let's say your dog normally works on a 8. Well, we might go up to a 20, 25, or 30, depending on what it takes. But we push this red constant button and we dial up fast. until your dog gets out of the trash. So when I say fast, we're going like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Oh, he got out of the trash. Okay, we got out at a 35. So I'm gonna set this situation, remember, be proactive rather than reactive. I'm gonna set this situation to happen again in about 10, 15 minutes. I'm gonna leave some lunch meat hanging over the trash, and I'm gonna go sit in the living room where I can see the dog out of the corner of my eye. Or you can set your phone up so that you're Skyping, so you're facing the trash when you Skype your other phone, so it's facing the trash, and you can go out of the house or upstairs or wherever, and you have, you know, your dog worked on a 35 last time, that's what got him off. I'm gonna go 2 higher, so I'm gonna say 37, and then he's gonna, you know, meander back into the kitchen, smell that wonderful lunch meat, and as he goes to get the lunch meat, we're gonna push and hold that until he gets out of dodge. And so we do use this more as a adversive for those behavioral problems, because we don't want to have to keep correcting them. If you give your dog one well-timed correction, that's it. He's never going to challenge it again. The trash is done for. He's over it. Amen. That's a problem behavior. Obedience, not so. Go back down to a low level, and we page your dog. So set it up to happen when you can control the situation. So for jumping, you can have people come to your house. We had a little get together and we just said free beer and food, just come on over, and we gave them designated times to show up. So we had somebody show up at 1, 1:15, 1:30, 1:45, 2, 2:15, 2:30, and so on. And so that every time somebody would come, I'd have an opportunity to work with my dogs jumping. Usually by the 3rd or 4th time, the dog's like, all right, I get it, no more jumping on the company, we're done. Again, because we set it on a higher level. So for commands that you feel like you have to tell your dog no, we always give the no, followed by what they should have been doing. Sit, down, come, and we push and hold until they come. Let's see. Proofing the reliability of your dog's training. This is really important to follow in this order. For your success and your dog's success. So we call it the 3 Ds: duration, distraction, and distance. Duration is how long can your dog hold that command. So if we put your dog in a place here at our training, we start with 20 minutes all the way up to an hour, sometimes 4 hours. And then we work on distraction. So your dog can hold the place for an hour. Fantastic. Can he hold it for an hour while my kids are playing or eating on the floor? Great, he can. Awesome. So now we're going to move on to distance. Can your dog hold a place as my kids have food and run away and I leave the room? And again, we have our phone set up on Skype or FaceTime so that we can keep a close eye on them. And we will make sure we have the e-collar on. If they try to break, then we stop training. I'm sorry, we don't stop training. We hit the button and make sure they resume back to their place. So practice your distance. Another way to do that is to back tie your dog on a place, so you can tuck his leash into a drawer or tie it to a doorknob or something, or on a table leg where he can't break the command. And use your e-collar as they're back tied. If they step off of the place, you push and hold until all four feet are back on the place. Transitioning to off-leash control. This is also why the leash and long lines are so important for your dog's training and his success, because we want him to know that you always have control. So by keeping the leashes on, if for some reason you know, you tell him to do a come command, and so he starts to come but he gets distracted because somebody's coming down the stairs or somebody just knocked at the front door, you can use your e-collar while you're guiding him with the leash or the long line, and so that he knows that you always have control. So transitioning to off-leash control means you start with your 6-foot line. Great, he's doing awesome for 2-3 weeks. We transition to the 15-foot leash. Now he's doing great for another 2 to 3 weeks. You don't even really have to touch the leash. Great, now we transition to the 30-foot leash, which means you can be several rooms away from your dog usually and still maintain that control if you need to. And if he's doing great for 2 or 3 weeks with the 30-foot line, then you're probably safe to take all leashes off of your dog and have reliable communication between your dog through the remote. So that's how you transition to off-leash control. So I hope this all made sense to you. Of course, we're going to go over it again during your go-home orientation. And if you have any questions or concerns, you know, write them down and we will go over them when you come to get your dog. We look forward to seeing you and have a great day.